Now for Chapter 2. Compared to our 8 puzzles with signs for Chapter 1, there's either 8 or 5 puzzles with signs for Chapter 2. The dark bulb one is weird. In total, there's actually 9 puzzle signs, but 3 of them get replaced with one sign later that doesn't say anything about the puzzle because you already solved it. It's weird, we'll get to it. Our first puzzle sign is actually all the way in the city, not beginning in the cyber fields. This puzzle is the crosswalk crossing puzzle. The sign says, "Welcome to Cyber City. Pedestrians need to press a switch to cross traffic." Okay, so most of the Chapter 2 puzzle signs don't have the same cryptic messages that 3 of the Chapter 1 signs had, so we can quickly get through these basic ones. This sign for the crosswalk is simple and is reasonable as a guide for someone who's visiting the city and needs to use the crosswalk. However, it doesn't let pedestrians know that pressing them will have varying effects on the cars. Gangaderos? The next 2 signs are for the mouse puzzle rooms. The Mice Puzzle 1 sign showcases, mice will rotate 90 degrees when they collide with the block. Citizens must push blocks to get mice in the holes. Use the bell to reset. The Annoying Mouse Room 2 sign exhibits the citizens' duty to properly rotate and release the mice using the traffic signs, and then it lists the controls to use the traffic signs. These signs would suggest that the Queen forces the Cyberworld Darkness to do puzzles to communicate on foot, like she instructs the Swatchlings to buy junk. If only the roller coaster was finished, or there was a Ferris, we would need tanks with giant wheels for that. Now for the big stuff, the dark bulb puzzle. Oh come on, what did I forget? The teacup ride? Oh, the one with the party of 4 after the ball throwing game. The Treasure of Air, where 3 are 1, placed 1 to 3. Perhaps it means we all have to enter one teacup? Well, I don't like doing it, but it works. This sign seems to just be a puzzle hint and nothing else. Other than describing balloons as the treasure of air, there isn't anything strange. I originally said this might be for the unused sky mantle, but actually, thanks to the recent newsletter, we have a new possibility. Chapter 5. In the newsletter, Toby teased us with a balloon. There are a lot of balloons for this specific puzzle, so maybe it's related to the one in the newsletter. Maybe it's foreshadowing like the block tree, or maybe it is just random. There are fun interactions for this puzzle, but this room is the worst to navigate, with one-tile walkways and stairs. Okay, now for the dark bulb signs. We'll go through all 4 of the signs first, and then have a tangent in the middle of it, but then we'll talk about the first sign. The first sign, the one with 3 colored shadows for the Queen's face, instructs, these dark bulbs will cast a bright shadow on the ground. Fill in the space with dark to unlock the way. If this were any other game with any other world, it would just be colored lights, but specifying dark bulbs that cast a bright shadow and filling the space with dark, yeah, this is why I said we're going to come back to this later. The second sign, the one with 4 shadows that form a triangle, says, "This puzzle is for staff only. Guests, please head back to your rooms." Yeah, this is just flavor text. Tasty though. The third sign, the one with 5 shadows of different shapes that combine to form a square, for some reason doesn't work like this, says, "Staff, if you're stuck, please don't call for help. No one can hear you. Not in this beloved death trap of a mansion." Ack, this one tastes bitter.
Stop taunting me with that appealing blue shape. You're just lucky this isn't online, or you wouldn't be able to taunt.
I would recommend watching Half-Bred Chaos's video, What the 4 Shadows Foreshadow, which asks if these shadows are foreshadowing. Something's a bit strange. Are we getting seemingly innocent foreshadowing puzzles related to darkness in each chapter? With the block tree being darker yet darker, and the dark bulb puzzle literally being foreshadowing. Actually, it's 5, but shh. Anyways, about the sign. It's just flavor text with a hint of regal laughter, with Queen acknowledging that the mansion is dangerous. And now for the 4th sign. What? A 4th sign? But there's only 3 puzzles. You see, these rooms are still here, and even if I go in here, the rooms are still here. However, they won't in a minute. Okay, and then if we head left. The puzzles! Where'd they go? Where's my puzzles? Where do they go? Well, after you clear the puzzles and make it through the Ralsei cutscene, the puzzle rooms get conveniently shortened. Probably not diegetic and just for player convenience, like with the rooms outside Card Castle being removed after you go through them with Lancer. Or is it diegetic? Anyways, this sign informs, the other 2 puzzle rooms have been removed unceremoniously by a giant hand. We ask our guests for their understanding and kinda hope they weren't in there. Ooh, this one tastes juicy with hint of... with battery acid? Ah! The giant hand is likely referring to the hands that clap in the acid tunnel of love, or the Giga Queen's hand. So, do we consider this as lore or just a funny joke? If it's lore, then that means the rooms of a dark world can be shifted easily if there's no longer a purpose to them, which could mean that the rooms outside Card Castle that get skipped are actually gone. I doubt that one actually disappears, as you're able to see Card Castle from a different point of view and you actually face a different direction when you walk through the loading zone. But if you don't want to call that one canon, then I do have something you cannot ignore. Room removal for secret bosses. Spoilers for the secret bosses if you somehow didn't know about the #1 rated salesman 1997, or that clown around town. There are a few rooms that get removed after their purpose has been fulfilled. We have the forest maze here, and then we have the rooms between the Thrash Zone and Card Castle. There's the 3 dark bold puzzle rooms, but then there's also the secret boss rooms. For Jevil, you have the cell door that leads into the circus tent. If you look not so closely, you'll see that the cage extends past the ground of the stairs, almost like it's out of bounds or something. If you instead see the darkness in the room as walls instead of a pit, then that would make the whole cell door being off the edges of the room seem way more suspicious. Take note of the door here. Currently, I haven't fought Jevil, but the door is still here. Now that I've beaten Jevil, the door is gone. The door being removed after you pacify Jevil or you win Jevil's game is somewhat odd, but it wouldn't be as crazy as, say, a giant toilet appearing to stop you from reading the Mice Puzzle 2 sign after you've reached Queen's Mansion. Yes, that's a thing. I highly doubt the toilet matters. Right? Perhaps the circus tent was removed so the door was too. Spamton's arena, on the other hand, is more interesting. Before you fight Spamton Neo, there is a wide, decently sized hallway with tracks. This room has an entrance below and 2 exits above. The left exit goes to where you end up after the fight, while the right exit leads to another narrower but still decently sized hallway with the Neo suit that has a Spamton crystal. Spamton crystal! Shadow crystal that Spamton has. After you beat Spamton Neo, instead of just walking into the same room with tracks and extension to the right, you end up in a completely different room, one with no tracks, and one that takes you from the end of the fight back to the basement save point. The tracks, the entire right side, in the room that had the Neo suit, vanish, replaced with a wall. I highly doubt you could chalk this one up to only being convenient for the player. You'd think the easier thing to do coding-wise would be to take you back to the same room, but instead, it's a completely different room. Both of the secret boss areas so far occur in the basement of a castle or mansion, which may be the cabinet closet looking thing due to the shelves. If this room disappearing thing has significance, then it would likely happen again for the Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 secret bosses, with their arenas disappearing after you clear them, after their purpose has been fulfilled. So what? What does this all mean? Well, if these arenas that disappear are at the bottom of a dark world, then what if they sink into an abyss of some kind after there's no more use for them? But why are hallways like the ones leading to the arena getting removed? Well, perhaps having hallways that lead to nothing is redundant, so what if the Dark World gets rid of them in order to conserve energy? Of course, if the Dark World was getting rid of rooms to conserve energy, that'd only make sense if the Dark Fountain could dry up over time, if the source of it was limited. Okay, I'm sorry for this, but we're going into a tangent within a tangent so I can more clearly explain what I think about darkness. If you see any writing on the screen, I'd probably trust that over what I'm saying, because I'm way better at writing things than speaking them. The ideas surrounding darkness in Deltarune are a bit vague so far. For example, we don't know if it's like made when you stab the ground with earth, or if it's like a substance like underneath Hometown. I'm on the side of darkness being a physical substance that has to flow out of somewhere, seeing that darkness seems to flow out rapidly when we strike the ground with enough determination. And I'd say it's more of a substance rather than just being created when you strike the ground with enough determination, because if you go outside right now with a knife and stab the ground, I don't think anything's gonna happen, except maybe you or the ground getting hurt. As we don't have a lot of information on darkness, there is a bunch of assumptions that have to be made, but until it gets proven wrong in a later chapter, I believe darkness is like a substance, and there's a lot of it under Hometown. Regardless of where the darkness is flowing from, there must be a lot of it for something like the roaring to happen, seeing that's when darkness overshadows the light, and that we have to seal the fountain manually instead of letting it run out, if that's even possible. Unless there's just infinite darkness underneath the earth, eventually it'd have to stop flowing. Although, if it's enough, then the entire surface could be covered, and then some. So if running low on darkness isn't the reason why rooms disappear, then what is? Maybe it's because there's no more stories to tell within those rooms. Okay, alright. This is like saying that a hallway disappears after you go through it, because it has no more purpose once you leave. But then other hallways stay, as there is at least something that they offer. This is like saying that a hallway disappears after you go through it. The hallway disappears, hallway. Who's ready for gas? I don't think this is connected, as the underground from Undertale is not a dark world. That's not saying that there couldn't be a dark world in Undertale though. Also, the Mystery Man door looks like a grayscale version of the teleport doors, which were not originally in the Dark Worlds, according to Jigsaw Joe and Mr. Elegance, the Night Piece. No, not the Roaring Knight. Anyway, perhaps the Dark Worlds are like fiction, creating stories for the objects within it. Then, if we removed everything of note from an area, then there would be nothing within to make a story with, apart from how wide, decently sized, and empty it would be. Or apart from making a story for why it disappears, like I'm doing right now. Honestly, I don't really have a concrete answer for why rooms disappear, and maybe I'm just going insane from the wait, but maybe the rooms really do disappear just because their purpose has been fulfilled. Also, after you turn off the force field in the basement and ride the jumpscare teacup ride of death, the whole room is locked off, with trying to go back in saying, the door rattles but doesn't open. Oh, wait. This is technically a puzzle, so I think I can justify talking about it more, despite it lacking a sign. When you enter the room, after running past the smiling wall plugs, it seems like it has nothing in it. Then you run to the left and you see nothing. But now you turn back, but now the way out has disappeared. You're locked out of the outside. So then you run to the left again to see if you're truly trapped, before you see Image Friend, very briefly, if you're fast enough. Then your ride arrives. You turn off the force field, ride the teacup ride of death, and when you return, the way out has reappeared. Leaving causes you to be locked out of the room. The interesting part about this to me is that the room just traps you in there. A seemingly empty room in a basement, with no entrance or exit. Soft-locked, wasting away from potassium deficiency. Perhaps you would have been trapped forever if it wasn't for Image Friend. The sprite name is in all caps and formatted like other gas-related files, so maybe they were there to help with unsoft-locking you and Chris. And as for why the way out would have disappeared, well, there was nothing in the room. Well, nothing except for Chris, a lightner. So perhaps because it's an empty room with no purpose or story to tell, it'd be blocked off. And perhaps this could happen even if a lightner was within. Death's Holiday? Perhaps rooms get cut off because they have no more purpose, because they have no more story to tell. This could potentially mean that lightners could be trapped within, like we have with Chris, potentially because they're not native to the Dark World. This could be a reason why Death went missing, but really we don't know much about Death, apart from her being likely to be the one trapped within the code. We'll probably learn a lot more about Death in Chapter 4, as the recent newsletters have teasers for Chapter 4 associated with the Holiday family, such as Noelle in the basement or a holiday tree. Although, this whole room's shifting and not being connected does sort of remind me of video game glitches, perhaps the kind that Noelle would have found. So perhaps there is some merit to this, who knows. You could maybe connect the storage closet from Chapter 1 to room removal, as it was empty with no walls, light switch, or chalk. But I'm hesitant because it was sort of in the light world and also in the dark world. I don't know, it's still kind of strange and mysterious. We'll probably get an explanation for it later. Anyways, the room traps you because it has no purpose, until Image Friend appears to save the day, calling the teacup ride, giving the room the purpose of being a challenge to unlock a force field, so that you can reach the Neo body. Or maybe Image Friend was just watching and I'm completely wrong. But either way, the room gets blocked off once you leave, because now it genuinely has no purpose. You already turned off the force field after all. Once you make it back up, the teacup ride breaks and falls, with the room waiting to do the same once you leave. Every other room at least has an item or something that makes it unique and gives it a purpose, but this, all it has is an inaccessible switch that can't be used again as it's already pressed. How did Spam to make it to the Neo suit if there was a force field? Maybe Swatch can remotely turn it on so they don't have to go through the teacup ride of death, I don't know. Anyways, maybe I'm just reading into locked doors and transforming rooms too much. Well, that was room removal, but what about the opposite? If removing everything of significance from a room leads to the room being removed, then what if you brought many significant things to a small area? Perhaps the gathering area of a town. Are there ways for Dark Worlds to expand past what they already are? Yes, I would like to say that there is. Castletown. When we first bring the Card Kingdom Darkness over to Castletown, the center of the town expands, transforming 4 placeholder buildings into fully functioning establishments. The chess pieces begin to build another great board where we fought the Rousey dummy, and we get to go inside the castle with the promise of more rooms. Although those likely existed before we brought the Card Kingdom Darkness over. After bringing the Cyberworld Darkness over to Castletown, which is something that you don't actually need to do, and it may actually change something in Chapter 3 if you don't do it. Please, Toby, I'm begging you, make this a thing! If you recruited enough Darkners, the Sweet Cap and Cakes will build a music room that lets you listen to 18 select songs, and a Lancer button. This is beautiful. Doing this also lets you buy CD bagels from Sham. We also learned from the September 2022 Deltarune status update that the cafe will expand in Chapter 4 if you bring the right recruits, which at least includes Shadow Guy and Task Manager. By expand, it means like it's literally expanding in length. So with this, we can see that bringing more recruits and Darkners to Castletown will result in Castletown expanding, or at least the buildings will be upgraded. But I think it'll be it's just gonna increase in size. This is gonna be a stretch, but what if you could create more rooms in a Dark World using this method for a Dark World that isn't Castletown? As I've said many times, at the end of Chapter 2, you do not have to drop off the Cyberworld Darkners in Castletown. So what if you brought them to, say, a Dark World in the Dreamer House? Perhaps there would be a few new rooms or changes specifically because of that. I really feel that not returning to Castletown in Chapter 2 will have a big impact, but at the very least it'll do something, like a cameo, hopefully. But at most, perhaps it could be a continuation of the weird route, sort of breaking how the game's supposed to go, not bringing the Cyberworld Darkness to where they're intended. This would go more in line with the weird route being more about breaking the game, and it's not just doing Undertale Geno again, but you're manipulating other people this time. Regardless of if Cyberworld Darkness will do something for Chapter 3, at the very least we know Rules is going to attempt to acquire snacks with someone at a certain time. I believe that this actually won't happen in Castletown, as I don't think Rousey would think Rules would want to fight if they are in Castletown, and I don't think the dojo is a place for snacks. In fact, it seems like they'd meet Rules after getting done with a fight against someone else. Or maybe Rousey's referring to another fight, like the one in the Acid Tunnel of Love, which having Chris and Rousey almost fight Rules would parallel the encounter in Chapter 2. Perhaps this encounter could happen during the long no-saving portion, as we learned from the Winter 2024 newsletter. The newsletter which happened to be released during the editing. Anyways, I could still be wrong about this and Rules isn't really that relevant, but who knows. He is in your pocket at the end of Chapter 2 though, just like Lancer. Okay, that was a tangent and a half. Now that I've gotten depth about room removal and additions, it's about time we get back to the first Dark Bulb sign. Remember that conversation with Susie and Lancer about reverse tanning? Hey, move it, Captain Toothpaste. You're blocking my reverse tan.
But Shadow's flares are making us as pale as a horse.
The lack of objection from Rousey either implies Lancer is right about how darkness can turn people paler, or that Lancer and Susie's shenanigans have gone so far that Rousey just gave up. It's probably the first one, as it'd be weird for Rousey to not object to something wrong here, but then in the next few rooms, the Forest Maze, indicate to not follow Lancer and Susie. And then, you know, the whole roaring situation later. The forest maze is another set of rooms that get removed, but since the save points still mention the maze, they're probably just skipped for convenience. This conversation helps explain how sight and darkness works. Flares of shadow make the ground darker, but the lighteners in us see it as brighter. In terms of the dark bulb puzzle, when we shine a bright shadow on the ground, our eyes see the ground as increasing in brightness and vibrance. In reality though, the dark bulb is still making the ground slightly darker than it already is, explaining the fill-in with dark part of the puzzle. Perhaps you could think of it like this. A dark bulb's like a light bulb, shadows flares are like sunlight, and I guess the dark fountain would be like the sun. Of course, instead of rays of light from a light bulb or the sun, it's rays of darkness from a dark bulb or the dark fountain. The increasing vibrance aspect explains why the fountain changes color when right next to it. If more darkness means something appears more vibrant and bright to someone in the dark world, then the fountain should look vibrant up close where it's darker. The increase in brightness and vibrance explains why the dark world versions of lighteners look more colorful and fun than their light world counterpart. Finally, the paling described by Lancer would be explained by an increase in brightness and a decrease in vibrance. A decrease in vibrance doesn't sound right at first until you consider tanning and sunburns. They make you appear darker or burnt. If a sunburn makes you appear darker or burnt, then I guess reverse tanning or a dark burn would make you appear brighter, and perhaps less vibrant as a result. My explanation of how darkness works is entirely based off of 4 lines of dialogue, a few sprites, and our world's shadows. I've probably gone insane, haven't I? Chad, I think I'm becoming a secret boss. Well, I believe that by now I've covered all the puzzle signs in Delta. What? Again? Again? How did it happen again? When I went to all the ones that... Oh... Mice Puzzle 4. The one in the acid tunnel of love. The one where the mice turn and it's impossible to get the dark dollars from the chest. Where you need the mice to go in both of the houses. Also, the houses in the Queen and Rousey banter actually do have a purpose. If you graze by them, you get more TP for the rules fight. Something neat. Okay, this is the actual final puzzle for this video. So, our final puzzle sign for the video says, "Dear guests, please note that our mice will turn at every crossing. Our vermin have been specifically handpicked for higher turning. Enjoy." So I guess that means that these mice are just built different. Do you get it? Because they're mechanical mice, they're built never mind. It wasn't even a mice pun. There wasn't anything special about this sign that warranted saving it for the end. I just forgot it until finishing the script, like with the Treasure of Air Teacup puzzle, the one that could be related to Chapter 5 or the Sky Mantle, who knows. Although also it means that the signs are chronological, so that's fun. Do you get it? Because they're made out of like robot cardboard plastic material. What is it? Why would I say cardboard? As we went through the puzzle signs, we covered how darkness works to let us see, with it being in the dark world making things that get even darker appear more vibrant and brighter to us, like negative photons more than just the absence of them. That's not all I can say about darkness, but that's for my next long video, one that might be the biggest stretch I've ever seen. Biggest stretch, just play a montage of what I just said for the past 5 minutes. But it would logically explain why we only see Dark Worlds in Deltarune, and not Undertale or real life. Some of the puzzle signs were cryptic, such as saying you can only see the path forward if you're blinded by darkness, or you can obtain the Treasure of Air. Others were pretty straightforward. It's a citizen's duty to manage the traffic signs so they don't have to play Frogger to commute. But out of all the signs, there was only one about light. Compared to darkness, which is more cryptic, there are a few notable examples of light, and I'm not referring to the light that lets us see. This light is a power that allows people to become stronger, a power that lets you seal a dark fountain, shining a light from your soul to completely remove the darkness from an entire world, bringing it back into the light. If I may, I would like to go in depth about the power of light in both Deltarune and Undertale. I'm gonna just Control-C, Control-V from my other script and tweak it a lot, and